Hello, welcome back to Red Lotus Life. I am Lori Kinsey.
I'm Sara Elizabeth.
We're so excited to have you back. We are in the middle of the embodiment workshop. It's free for a limited time here in the playlist. As soon as we're done closing up, that's going to be taken down. So I suggest you go and check it out. We did a embodiment clear the very first week of this workshop, and it was sympathy. So the emotional block was sympathy, which is a feeling of resonance with in the area of family love, which is, you can kind of guess what that is. It definitely has to do with the family, but it also can have to do with people, places, and things that feel like family, which is why I really enjoy what we're doing now as we're integrating. You're catching us integrating this clear, and we introduced somatics. We introduced somatics in this embodiment workshop. Last time we were talking about the mental channel, and this time we're going to be talking about the imagination channel, which is one of my favorites now, but didn't used to be. So I'm really excited that we're diving into this.
Yeah, me too. So from here, we're going to be sort of taking the thought process of being in the mental body, where we were last week when we were talking about the mental channel and mentality. So we're taking that spark, that thought, and we're going to move that into the imagination channel, which is, this is where we visualize. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I really love the imagination channel, and it's a place that for me, because especially this is a really a cool conversation to have when we're talking about embodiment, because I feel like so many people can resonate when you are doing this work. For me, I was able to always visualize, and I had this massive imagination, but because I was always so disassociated, I couldn't be grounded, and nothing that I could visualize actually ever landed and came into fruition. So that's why we do this work, a big, huge part of that, because now, especially with this being the creative channel, as we land and as we become more embodied, then we're able to actually create those things that we can visualize. So super fun.
I love that you say that this sounds like as if it was easy for you, because you said you had this big imagination, right? And for me, it was the opposite of that. I actually didn't have a big imagination, and that got shut down and conditioned out of me real fast. So that's why I was saying it hasn't really been like my favorite, but it is now as we start to release the conditioning. Oh my gosh. And you know this by even just collaborating with me here in Red Lotus Life. It's like I have this grand vision for what is to come. And so, yeah, it's a totally different life when you can tap into that. So,
yeah,
for sure. Started?
Yeah, I'm ready to get started. I was just going to say it's been really beautiful to witness our own process as we are integrating this clear as far as what's actually landing for you and I and for Red Lotus Life. So big things coming. We can't wait to start to share things.
It's big. It really is. Okay. Can you see this?
I can see. Okay, so of course we are speaking about somatics and moving into the imagination channel. And again, like I was saying, we're hopping over from that mental space, and we're sparking that thought and beginning to have that thought grow. So we're beginning to see things in the mental eye, our imagination, and this is where we visualize. So the imagination is the creative channel. The imagination channel connects us to our creative energy, our ability to visualize our reality and then create or recreate it. I really love this piece about recreating our reality, because this is where we can start to do some really deep healing work, because when we are able to tap into this channel, we can actually imagine a different outcome for an experience that we've had. So we're not only creating our reality here, but we're also recreating that reality, creating new neural pathways so that our experience is different moving forward. So the imagination channel is most often utilized for grounding practices manifesting or creating, and of course for healing, which is a huge purpose of us being here. Through the imagination channel, we are able to connect with our desires and our vision to guide us moving forward. And so this is also going to be a way for us to guide us during our healing journey. There is so much that we can tap into when we're able to visualize and begin to notice the sensations and the other channels within our bodies and be able to start to move that stuck charge. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about this section.
Oh my gosh, this is okay. So this is actually why now it's starting to be my favorite, one of my favorite channels, because I always share with my clients that our desires are our compass. And how do we connect with our desires unless we can imagine them, right? We literally have to imagine them. And so when we visualize them, there's a ton of crazy cool stuff that happens whenever we start to visualize on like, well, we can quantum physics. I mean, just all kinds of things, right? There's a lot of things. It's almost like a firing off tends to happen when we can visualize it and we get to actually taste it, feel it, hear it, see it, all of those things. Then there's something in us that literally lights up. And we can go into all the science around it, but that will be something we'll save for the membership. So we go through it, something in us, actually on a physical level, energetic level, all these levels, lights up in us, raises our frequency and vibration on a cellular level. And then it's like this whole, it literally is like boom, 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 boom. Like you can literally see all the things start to light up and connect, almost like string of dynamite or something like that is what I see. And then you're actually in now like the area of when they speak about the law of attraction, things like that, which is something that we can go into another time. But it is this right here that you're talking about that actually starts to guide us and it starts to create this new reality. We just have to imagine it. So
yeah, one of the ways that I have always really loved to teach about how we can create our realities is to think about an architect. And, you know, we start in that mental body with the thought, I'm going to build a skyscraper, right? So the architect's going to build the skyscraper, but then he has to have all of the plans. He has to imagine all of those plans and what the building's going to look like. And we start to create this thing. And all of a sudden that little spark that started in the mental body is now this amazing, beautiful skyscraper. And so that's like my favorite way to describe this exactly.
This is where vision boards come in, meditate, like I'm so excited to jump into it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving right along. So why the imagination channel? And we just sort of barely got into that. But the imagination channel is excellent for exploring and inquiring when intense body sensations or emotions arise. They can create a feeling of safety and create space. Now, this is really, really big, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more later on. But we really can create a feeling of safety and space when we are able to utilize the imagination, and that can be really deeply healing. So visualization can help us gradually or gently move out of feelings of overwhelm in the body and therefore create a feeling of safety.
This is where a lot of people who have gone to therapy or have done EMDR or anything like that, they talk about your safe space, right? They have you create your happy place and your safe space when you're going through some of these different types of modalities and therapies. And I love this because this right here, when you're talking about creating your reality, this is a prime example of that, of going, create the happy place, right? Where's your happy place? Create that. And then that's this feeling of safety that you can always go back to.
always go back to. That was one of the very first things, one of the very first sessions that I ever had on my healing journey was actually just that. I was instructed or guided to create that safe space. And to this day, I will still go back there. Like that's my happy place. That's my safe space. And I will still revisit. So it's something that's really stuck with me and stayed with me. So
my happy place is Hanalei Bay on Kauai, North Shore of Kauai. Like I can see it right now. I can visualize it. It's actually at sunset. The waves are barely crashing onto the beach. I can see like all the orange and yellow and reds coming out, palm trees in the back.
Yeah. I love this actually, because as you're describing it, then this is how like we can get a felt sense for that imagination, because I can actually imagine that with you and begin to feel those sensations in the body. And I can feel the joy that it brings you to visualize that. And it actually starts to create those sensations in my body and for, others as well. So this is how it works. And I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tapping into the imagination. Visual, apparently I cannot say that word today. Visualization can be hard for some people. As Lori's already mentioned, like that was something that for her was, conditioned out of her at a very young age. And I even remember, when this was coming up for you when we were doing some work. So, really good place to start. If you can't perceive with the mind's eye, then most people can tap into another imagined sense. So if you can't actually see it, you can usually come up with how it might taste, how it might smell, a feeling, a color, a sound, or another sensation. So there's always something that you can imagine. So maybe you can't actually visualize yourself, say, standing in the middle of a circle or standing in the middle of a building, but you can sense the building around you, just as an example. Some more examples are, if you can't visualize it, can you imagine feeling or perceiving it? Can you sense it? Can you give the sensation a color, shape, or sound? And can you imagine how it would taste? So sort of different ways to ask those questions to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning of like, literally, can you taste it? Can you hear it? Can you smell it? And this is what actually started it for me. And yeah, you do remember that actually.
Yeah.
You remember that. And I actually remember even when I was starting to connect again and actually connect to my body in that way, I also experienced headaches and different things like that as I was starting to use my mind's eye to be able to tap into all of these imagined senses. So that is something that can also be happening as well. Like, so if you were like me and it was just black, it was like, I didn't know how to dream. I didn't know how to connect. And so it really was, I think with this, what I just shared with you, even about Hanalei Bay, I think it started with the sounds, and it would be the sounds of the waves. And then it would be like the seagulls, and it would just be like, different things like that. So I invite anyone that this might be hard for you to, just start with that and imagine, like, even if it is a food, like, how would it taste, right? How would it taste? How does it smell? What do you hear? Is there a color? That's another one too. If you can't see anything, start with a color or a texture. Like, is there a texture? Because sometimes all of a sudden you'll start to see that. I remember it was hard for me one time. I was in a session actually with a client, and she was having a hard time with it. And all of a sudden I said, well, how about a texture? Is there a texture there? And then all of a sudden she saw like the orange peel. And that actually was how I connected too in the beginning, was I started to see the textures of things. I don't remember which one, but Yeah, so that was a really good example of how all of a sudden it can go from there. And then now all of a sudden you're smelling the orange, and now you're tasting the orange. And now where are you as you're eating the orange? That type of thing.
Yeah, it can just expand, and you can have this entire experience just in the imagination with this orange or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now this is just sort of a little exercise that we can move through that allows us to create space and safety. So the process lessens charge and helps ground into safety, ground safety into the body. So you can have this experience. It may be traumatic. It may be mildly traumatic. It could be just some, there's so many different experiences that you can have that may not feel good to you, is basically what I'm trying to say. So the first questions that you would like to ask yourself is, can you see it? And if you can see it, can you describe it? And what does it look like? So once you're able to use those descriptions, then how far are you from this thing that caused you to feel good or to not feel good? What amount of space would feel good to be between you and that person, place, or thing? And do you need something to be in between that person and that thing? So it could be a stuffed animal that has been comforting to you. It could be an example that I've learned in the past was a weapon that makes you feel safe. It could be a tool, or it could be an actual another person. So maybe your father or your grandfather was the person who created a feeling of safety for you. And so that person, you can imagine being between you and the thing that made you feel unsafe. And then you can start to really imagine the distance growing and growing and growing. And maybe the distance that feels safe is across the house. Maybe the distance that feels safe is literally across the world. Maybe the distance that makes you feel safe is, in another city or town. But when you can start to imagine that distance, and then you can recall that, you can come back into a feeling of safety when that space is created. And then some more questions to follow through with this process. Is there anything that you can put between you and that thing, or is there anything you need with you? I think I sort of jumped ahead of myself for this one. So we've already established those things.
Yeah, I love that you even touched on all of this, because one time I was in session with a client, and that was one of the things that she needed, was to put something in between her and that thing. And when I said, okay, so what would it be? And nothing was big enough. And all of a sudden she said Jupiter. And so she literally put the planet Jupiter in between her and that thing, that experience. But I like that we're even touching on this, because it does lessen the charge, and it helps you ground into safety by transmuting this emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. And a lot of times whenever we have these emotions that we're not used to looking at or feeling, then it can be scary, right? But whenever we start to do this type of an exercise, it actually will start to diffuse and neutralize, especially if you're doing this clearing work with us. That's exactly what we're doing, is we're neutralizing the emotion. And then as we do exercises like this to integrate our clearing session, it actually will begin to empower you. And as you move from a place of fear or feeling unsafe into transmuting that, into neutralizing it, and then into empowerment, this is actually where healing really begins to take place. And with us using the spiral modality as the basis for this, it happens really fast. Like, it happens quick. And so something that may feel as if like it's too scary to go there, when you use these practices and these different processes, you're going to be in a different place by the time we're done with this workshop, you're going to be in a different place.
Yeah, for sure. I love this process so much.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so good. All of this is so good. I'm excited to jump into what we have 3 more channels.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice. Was there anything else that you wanted to speak to on the Imagination channel?
The only thing that I'd like to share is that I would love for all of you who are here with us to share with us what your experience is and has been, and what you are able to come up with when you're doing these visualization practices and using the Imagination channel. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, I'd love to hear too. And there's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. That's what is amazing about these types of practices is it's very unique to you. So we'd love to hear what ends up coming up. Also, I'd love to know what's everyone's happy place? What is that safe space? Like drop that into the comments. I'd love to hear. All right. Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you again for joining us. We know that you can be anywhere else but here, but we appreciate you. We love you. We value you. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please share it. Share it with somebody that you think might also gain some value from this or find value. If you're enjoying the content that we are speaking about and sharing about here, we invite you to subscribe because we do try to put a video out every single week. And then if you are enjoying it in the way of like, you're like, yes, this applies to me, please hit the like button because now we know that this is the type of thing that you want to continue to see here. So also, if you are interested in diving deeper in any of the things that we've been talking about, we invite you to join us in the Red Lotus Life membership. This is where we dive deeper, even more into like what I was speaking about with the law of attraction and the science behind things. And just, there's just so much more that ends up happening in there. So you can join us with the link below. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big news coming about that too in the future.
So excited. All right. Well, until next time, see you later.
Bye.
And live your life